ended not with a bang, but with the soft chime of a smartphone notification. It was a Saturday. Mark was building a Lego Millennium Falcon with his 7-year-old son, Leo, whose laughter was the soundtrack of his life. His daughter, Chloe, 10, was practicing a new song on her violin in the next room, the notes occasionally screeching, but always beautiful to his ears. This was his universe, solid, loving, built on a foundation he had worked 80-hour days to provide for. Then his wife's phone, left charging on the kitchen counter, lit up, a single name, Dr. Evans, and a message that shattered his reality. The results are in. Call me. He needs to know. A cold dread, entirely new and terrifying, coiled in his gut. Dr. Evans, their family physician. Why would he be texting Sarah about results? And he needs to know. Mark's thumb, almost of its own volition, hovered over the screen. His heart hammered against his ribs, a frantic drumbeat of impending doom. With a breath he didn't realize he was holding, he tapped the notification. The thread opened, and he scrolled. It wasn't just one message. It was a history. Conversations about blood types, about recessive genes, about discrepancies a loving father had blissfully ignored. And then the attached PDF, the official paternity test results, 2 of them, one for Leo, one for Chloe. Conclusion 0.00% probability of paternity. The words blurred, the violin music stopped, Leo's voice asking, "Dad, are you okay? You look sick." Sounded like it was coming from the end of a long tunnel. Mark's knees buckled. He gripped the counter, the cold granite, the only real thing in a world that had just dissolved into a lie. 18 years of marriage, 10 years of fatherhood, every scrap of identity he had, provider, protector, father, husband, was ripped away, revealing a hollow, laughingstock fool. The love of his life hadn't just cheated. She had built their life, their family, on a bedrock of betrayal. And in that silent, earth-shattering moment, as his daughter's innocent eyes peered around the doorframe, Mark's soul didn't break. It turned to ice, and the only thing colder than the truth was the vengeance now taking root in the frozen wasteland of his heart. The days that followed were a performance of Oscar-worthy caliber. Mark moved through the motions of his life, making breakfast, driving the kids to school, kissing Sarah goodbye, all while the specter of her deception hung between them, a ghost only he could see. He studied her, the way she laughed so easily, the casual affection she showed him, the absolute mastery of her lie. It made him physically ill, but he swallowed the bile. Revenge, he learned, required a stomach of iron and a heart of stone. He began his work in the shadows. He hired a discreet and ruthless private investigator. The reports that landed in an encrypted digital Dropbox were more devastating than he could have imagined. Sarah's affair hadn't been a fleeting mistake. It was a 5-year relationship with an old college boyfriend, a man named David. There were trips taken under the guise of work conferences, hotel receipts, and a string of text messages so intimate and familiar they stole the air from Mark's lungs. The investigator even provided a photo. Sarah, laughing, her head thrown back, nestled under the arm of a man Mark had never met. The date on the photo was Chloe's 5th birthday party. He had been grilling burgers in the backyard while she was whispering promises to another man in the pantry. He methodically separated their finances, siphoning off liquid assets into a new, private account. He contacted a pit bull of a lawyer, a woman named Elena Vance, whose reputation for eviscerating opponents in divorce court was legendary. "Paternity fraud is a nuclear option, Mr. Miller," she'd said, a grim smile playing on her lips. "It will not only end your marriage, it will annihilate her entire world. The courts do not look kindly on this level of deception. You will get everything, and she will get nothing." The word annihilate echoed in him. It was the goal. The confrontation came not as a heated argument, but as a cold, clinical ambush. He waited until the kids were at a sleepover. He sat Sarah down at their dining room table, the same table where they'd shared countless family meals. He placed 2 folders in front of her. One contained the paternity tests, the other, a sample of the evidence of her affair. You have 30 seconds to tell me the truth before my lawyer files these with the court, he said, his voice a flat, dead thing. The color drained from her face. She stammered, began a denial, but her eyes were locked on the damning documents. The performance was over. The truth tumbled out in a torrent of tears and excuses. It was a mistake. She was lonely. He was never home. It meant nothing. They meant nothing, Mark interrupted, pointing a trembling finger at a school photo of Leo and Chloe on the mantel. You built my life on a lie. You made me love children who were never mine. You are a fraud. He served her with the papers the next day. The lawsuit was breathtaking in its scope. Divorce on grounds of adultery, full custody, the house, his retirement accounts, and a landmark civil suit for paternity fraud, demanding repayment of every cent he had ever spent on the children, from diapers and daycare to braces and ballet lessons. He wanted it itemized. He wanted the total to be a monument to her sin. The day she was formally evicted from their home was his first taste of victory. He watched from an upstairs window as she loaded a rental car with boxes. Her shoulders slumped in a defeat he had orchestrated. The kids, confused and crying, were sent to stay with her sister. He felt a jolt of something dark and potent. It wasn't happiness, it was power. The ice in his chest warmed with the heat of her destruction. A year passed. Mark had won. The court had granted him everything he sought. The financial judgment against Sarah was crippling, forcing her into a cramped apartment and a second job. She was a social pariah, the woman who had committed the ultimate betrayal. Public opinion, fueled by the salacious details that always leak, had crucified her. He had the house, the money, the pristine legal victory. He sat in its echoing silence, the master of a dead empire. The children's visits, mandated by the court, were agony. Leo's won. Effortless hugs were now stiff and hesitant. Chloe, older and more aware, looked at him with eyes full of a confusion that bordered on accusation. "Why did you make Mommy so sad? Why did you take our house?" she asked once. He recited the facts, the lie, the betrayal, but the words sounded hollow even to him. He was their father's killer, and they were the orphans of his war. The revenge that had sustained him was now a poison. It had eaten away everything else, his capacity for joy, his ability to connect, the very man he used to be. He was just the embodiment of a wronged party, a statue on a hollow throne, presiding over the ruins he had created. The climactic moment came on a rainy Tuesday. He had to drop off some of the kids' forgotten homework at Sarah's apartment. He'd never been inside. He expected squalor, a satisfying visual of her downfall. Instead, he found something else. The apartment was small, yes, but immaculate. The smell of homemade cookies hung in the air. On the wall was a large, hand-drawn calendar, meticulously charting her 2 jobs and the kids' schedules. In the center of the small living room, Leo was building a Lego set on the carpet, and Chloe was practicing her violin. It was a pathetic imitation of his own spacious home, but it was filled with a raw, struggling love that his sterile mansion utterly lacked. Sarah answered the door, looking exhausted but clear-eyed. She saw him taking it in. There was no plea, no anger, just a weary resignation. "You won, Mark," she said, her voice quiet. "You got your revenge. You proved your point to the world. I hope it keeps you company at night." She didn't slam the door. She closed it softly, leaving him standing in the dim, rain-slicked hallway. Her words were not a weapon, they were a mirror. And in them he saw the truth. He had proven he was right. He had proven he was powerful, but he had lost everything that ever made any of it matter. The revenge he had consumed him in return, leaving nothing but ash. He drove away that night, not to his victorious mansion, but to a quiet cliff overlooking the city. He held no thoughts of forgiveness for her. She didn't deserve it. He felt no sudden kindness. This wasn't about her. It was about him. The path of destruction he had chosen had only led him deeper into the wasteland. Letting go wasn't an act of mercy for her. It was the only form of self-preservation he had left. He had to let the rage go, not because she was innocent, but because he was tired of being its prisoner. The most profound revenge against an enemy who has destroyed your past, he realized, is to refuse to allow them to destroy your future as well. He would let the lawsuit stand. The justice was real, but the hatred, that he would leave behind in the rain. It was a weight he could no longer afford to carry. Moral of the story: revenge is a fire that seems to warm you as it burns down the very house you stand in.